Hello, everyone, and welcome to something of a little oddity in our Monster Marathon, as I just called it. A short film called Waiting for Gorgo. I have not really heard too much about this movie. It's a 2009 short film, and it's only really got two characters in it, I think.
Three.
Three characters, yeah.
And their actors respectively did not do a lot. This was a very self-contained project. Supposedly, it was produced by British company Cinemagine, which you can find on their YouTube channel. The copy that we're watching, so link in the description. And the film was directed by a guy called Benjamin Craig, written by M.J. Simpson, which I will find the writing credit later. The plot focuses as a distant sequel to the original movie, just in a particular way because, as you can imagine, the title is, a pun on the original play, Waiting for Godot. If you don't know, it's about two guys who are waiting for this third character, Godot, but he never arrives and they literally die where they stand. So, well, let's see how that works in this, I guess.
Yeah, and this thing's apparently pretty well. Okay, maybe low profile isn't the best word, but if this thing has a huge audience, they apparently have missed out on this video. Shoot, the channel we're watching this from has only so many subscribers as well.
Again, I don't know the details about, these companies Cinemagine. For all we know, they just, recently started archiving their stuff. Maybe it's because of that. But again, let's not dilly-dally too much and get to see these clips. Again, the all you need to know is that the official Cinemagine channel has it, in its catalog, so you can watch it there with us. Link in the description below. Take us away with it, please.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Between 2010 and 2012, it's mentioned that it was screened at 26 international film festivals, including Clermont-Ferrand International Short Film Festival, Seattle International Film Festival, and Strasbourg European Fantastic Film Festival. It was also awarded a special jury prize at SOM, and Best Short Film at the Cannes Film Festival in the USA.
Well, that's pretty shoddy. That's pretty shoddy from the Ministry of Defence for a start. Fire extinguishers propping up doors.
It looks a bit like an insane asylum, actually.
It's probably they filmed this in an abandoned building, if I had to guess.
An abandoned building in London? Imagine.
I mean, to be fair, Jova, it could be in Cardiff, as a proud tradition for the UK.
Although, is it any surprise that part of the inspiration for Gotham City is apparently London at times? Anyway, the description for this is a short comedy of monstrous proportions. So, how does one make a comedy out of Gorgo?
You'll see, or more like here, because in true short film tradition with a limited budget, it's mostly about just a few people talking inside a room.
So yeah, none of the monster.
And none of the original, I can tell you, none of the original actors, surviving actors from the original movie came back for this. So don't expect an older version of the child.
I was about to say, how cool would it have been to have seen like an older version of the kid, basically?
The MOA.
Waiting for Gorgo. Well, you're going to be waiting a while.
Well, this part of the building looks at least more like an actual office.
These two old people are played by Jeffrey Davis and Nicolas Amer.
I know that you said that none of the actors returned, but just to be certain, these guys definitely weren't in the original movie character-wise.
They're gonna explain how they're tied to the original, though, trust me. Also, Jeffrey Davis passed away in 2023. He was active until 2012. Dwaves, he was in Casualty, EastEnders, Doctors, a series called Stick With Me Kid, and many others. So I guess these guys are recurring one for the for British TV series. The other role, Nicolas Amer, there you go. He stopped acting in 2018 instead. Oh goody, he was an extra in Miss Peregrine's All from Peculiar Children, so there is that.
So apparently this woman is named Alexandra Collins, and she's here doing an audit for the the Ministry of Defense.
She's played by Kelly Eastwood, an actress who hasn't done a lot. Her last created role is a product called Nowhere from 2014.
Like I mentioned during our Gorgo commentary, it's not like Gorgo faded off into obscurity. It technically did and is still getting some new material, mainly in the form of comics to this day, but
it's also
I'm guessing
referenced in different places, both IRL and in movies. Apparently,
there is a website.
Apparently, apparently a former Marine governor from your country called Angus King used a clip from the movie in an advertisement for his 2012 run for the US Senate. How bizarre.
The 2012 elections, what a time to be alive.
The time where Mr. Burns tried to convince Santa's little helper to choose Mitt Romney instead of Broccoli Obama.
So I'm guessing that this short film was truly a labor of love from somebody who really thought, you know, Gorgo does need a sequel, even if it won't have Gorgo in it.
It's someone's distant fan fiction about something that might have happened after the movie, basically.
Coolio. And since this is 2009, I can tell this was a time where independent films probably weren't ready to fancy the idea of having, you know, a big budget effect, so they settled for basically accounts of people as opposed to showing any shots of the monster.
I'm more curious about if they had the permission of MGM, because the movie was not in the public domain at this point. And, you know, they had to reference it by name, so I think maybe it's mentioned in the credit or something, I don't know.
Either that or it was one of those copyright loopholes where you can mention something by name, but only to a certain extent. Like, I've seen some bouts where people...
As showcased that they have the silhouette of a monster that is pretty identical to how it looked in the movie for their scaling process.
Okay, yeah.
This department is made to make sure that not just Gorgo, but no other kaijus will try to invade the UK.
Oh, so does DMOA stand for Defense Against Monsters?
They didn't mention it before. But unfortunately, over the years, because nothing happened, the UK government, in all their brilliance, started to downscale the budget until only these two Stafford and Waldorf lookalikes remained.
You see, we realized that at some point, kaijus are only interested in America or Japan, so Britain just doesn't care.
This conversation is very Alice in Wonderland-esque.
I have to appreciate that the British government was willing to officially put that in the patents and everything, and somehow do that without laughing.
We're in such good hands.
These two old guys are going to combat Gorgo and Orga. Although I guess at this point, Orga might be in the kaiju retirement home.
Alright, here we go. No, 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 not that one.
So here's a bit of a weird thing. Apparently, they imply that the Gorgo attack was covered up or just forgotten.
Yeah. For now, we're just
Which,
recapping the movie. Again, it does match out. It shows that the people watched the movie.
Well, it sounds silly when you put it that way.
Yes, young lady.
look, have you not heard the recordings from the reporter who literally said, "We prayed for a miracle, and it seems that that miracle has come."
There you go. The office was set immediately after, and these two joined a bit later. And yeah, as you said, Jova, the UK government decided to cover all this thing. How did they do so? It's beyond me, but to be fair, as we mentioned, these were the years of, banned British governments. Well, you get what I mean, as in precursor to Thatcherism, so it's
Well,
not
look
too
at that.
surprising.
Well, look at that. This is a sequel to Gorgo. It's also a critique on the British government.
Proud traditions and all.
You know, that said, I am amazed that no salty Brit ever did make a kaiju movie taking the piss out of Margaret Thatcher. She seemed to be the real, the real deal when it came to drawing the ire of the people.
So it took the Ministry of Defense only now to realize that were, unspecified salaries.
You know, maybe I was right, and this building actually is just an insane asylum, and she's actually just one of the nurses coming in to check on these two guys who long for the days of the kaiju, so they've gone insane, and this is where they're squared away. But yeah, this is one thing I kind of tilt my head at. See, unlike America or Japan in the Godzilla movies, the government decided, oh yeah, we totally need to cover this up. Like to the Godzilla movies' credits, neither America or Japan tried to cover it up. They're like, no, we should actually be very careful in case there's another kaiju attack.
To be fair, remember, the original story was also a diplomatic accident because the British people stole property from, Ireland. So I get the idea that was one of the reasons why they covered it up.
Fair point, being face and all that. That said, did that mean that they had to silence the news reporters and everything? Like,
I
damn.
guess. There you go. Photos
There
from
we
the
are.
original movie.
Hey, pictures. Okay, yeah, I guess this did have to face up to copyright. They still don't call her Ogra though, even though that seems to be where she's called pretty much everywhere else.
But hold on.
What?
I love that the joke is that they're being stuck in this office so much they don't know what DVD is.
So they didn't know that there's been a movie made of this thing. Well, great job covering it up, I guess. Although, I guess maybe the Brits just chalked it up to amazing special effects. Is that the plot twist, actually? That she's just a really big fan of Gorgo and these guys happen to mistake that with what happened?
Well, her flatmate seems to be, but she only had a faint memory of that.
Oh, they mistook a cell phone for a walkie-talkie. God, I can only imagine how confused they would have been by a smartphone.
There you go. The movie when we got Joga was the cover-up of that.
So they're basically pulling a Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows.
Kinda, sorta. Well, to be fair, even the first or Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey too, kinda.
But if that's the case, then why is
Hold
there
on,
DMOA then?
short is not over. Don't worry.
Okay. Maybe you're just bad at your job.
I mean, to be fair, I do agree a bit. It's a bit fucked up that the UK government prefers to remember the Nazis than a giant monster.
Huh. Okay, that is actually kind of clever. Use the actual real life footage and posit that as a movie. That being said, that would make that legit some of the best special effects ever in like any film whatsoever. Damn, they must have had an amazing psychologist working his magic to convince them of that. Even people who literally jumped from their flats and died, well, died or got injured.
It's kind of interesting that this period of time was also when Marvel Comics introduced the Sentry character. And let me put it this way, Dwayne, so the character works a bit differently than it was in his MCU counterpart. They did this clever thing of having created the character just recently at this point, but they pretended that he had existed ever since the Silver Age, basically, and had deliberately erased the memory of everyone as a result of something bigger going on.
Okay, I get why she would be skeptical, but does she honestly think that the Ministry made a fake branch based off of a movie?
It's more about the principle of Sherlock Holmes. When you eliminate the impossible, everything else, no matter how improbable it is, has to be the truth. And in her mind, because, you know, a giant monster to her is impossible, this is the best explanation.
This is such a weird sequel. Like, is it saying, oh, well, look at that. The movie that you loved is
Hold on,
fake.
Drova.
I mean,
Short is not over yet.
True, true.
Sorry, Dweebs, that's your tax pay going on.
Yeah, we're just spending it to keep these two guys happy.
Well, think about it. You guys got paid to essentially do nothing.
To be fair, they also had a purpose for decades, and now they're just being told that, you know, it was all for nothing.
True. Okay, if this had been made in the mid 2000s where indie films had more budget, they totally would have ended this with a shot of Gorgo outside the window just to prove her wrong.
And that's it.
Wait, that's how it ends? I mean...
a tooth.
Basically, that's the way of saying, no, it actually did happen. And they collected evidence, and the girl just was, you know, trying to process what was happening.
I do wish we could have seen her reaction to that, though.
And then they killed her by bashing that tooth over her head.
This is not Clockwork Orange, lives, so no. So yeah, Gorgo turns out never arrived again.
Alas, but at least we know that it actually did happen.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine a film sequel actually made it so that the previous film never happened? It was just a film in universe.
Again, lives. We need the Pooh, Blood and Honey too.
I really honestly think if this movie had been released a bit later, by the time when indie films had more of a budget, I bet you they would have ended with like a shot of Gorgo like at the
Emerging,
coast or
yeah.
out the window just to have her react in shock that he actually is real. Or God forbid,
Okay.
it turns out that they're actually working with Gorgo now.
Okay, they
Since it's
did
a
credited
comedy.
the photos of the shooting of the movie, but not MGM, interestingly. I don't know what their
Huh.
logistics were. Again, copyrights are a people thing. I know about that.
Okay, so they did use the photographs. However, maybe the name itself wasn't copywritten, so they could say the name and use the photographs, given that they credited them. I'm guessing.
Hmm.
That's my best guess. Copyright do be complicated like that.
In the meantime, final thoughts. So, Dweebs, what do you think?
That was a movie.
A short
Um,
movie, to be precise.
yeah. It's the honestly, I'm not sure what to make of it. It was just mostly just this woman trying to convince these two old guys that everything they know is a lie, and then twist, we have a giant tooth. That's not something we made up. So that proves the monster is real for sure.
Uh-huh.
And that's really about it. I mean, this almost marketed as a comedy as well, apparently.
And
Mm-hmm.
apparently it did win multiple awards, so I guess people liked it.
What most bizarre idea for a sequel?
Let's see.
You have to, like I
Apparently,
said, you have to remember, still end of the 2000s, so, lots of experimental stuff going on in the indie scene. But so, I can understand why the reaction was more positive, at least back then. IMDb tells
it's
that
I
the
like
mean,
rating is on the 6 out of 10, so it does
I mean,
check
could
out.
you? I mean, it'd be like if they made a short movie where where a man is in an insane asylum. He gets visited by his doctor, and yeah, after a long conversation, the conclusion is, Mr. Wright, there is no such thing as spirit mediums.
Jesus Christ. Although, okay, like I said, I definitely do get the 2000s energy of this. This was a time where indie films were getting ambitious, but they could still only do so much effects wise, essentially. I'd say, with the 2010s, that's where we'd see indie films actually be able to have some effects that you would actually see in a big budget movie, albeit, much fewer. Or heck, even do more ambitious stuff with CGI, computer effects, and whatnot. This was before that, so I can see probably why they did that. Or who knows, maybe it was because of copyright law and they just opted to go for only the photos and, not the actual Gorgo stuff. Who knows? I really do think it is a bit of a product of its time, though.
Yeah, it's not bad or anything. It's just really bizarre.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Alright,
that's it for me.
Java.
Well, I see why it's posited as a comedy. That being said, okay. I do get the feeling that, if I were like a big Gorgo fan and like this was the next best thing I had for a sequel in 2009 or, around that time specifically, yeah, I could see myself enjoying this enough as its own little fun romp, essentially. I do feel like, had this come out at a later time, it either would have, been beefed up more, or it probably might have been critiqued a bit harder, because I do feel like it's kind of a bit of a shame that, oh, here's like pictures of Gorgo, but not even a roar or a silhouette or like a showing of the beast itself and whatnot, like
Maybe
maybe
that would
Gorgo
have
grown
infringed
up.
the copyright.
Yeah, again, it really can vary. Like sometimes copyright can vary from, oh, you can have a look-alike but not have a name to, oh, you can say the name but don't you dare show that character, or hey, you can have this character but not have him at this level of character development or we'll sue you, essentially. I'm not even kidding. That's literally the case with Sherlock Holmes. But again, I digress. This is, again, a fine enough film fan venture and whatnot. All that same, I do feel like that there's a bit more they could have done. Like, shoot, at least show the girl's reaction, but no, I guess it's just the guy shows her a tooth, and I guess the argument's won, and she'll note on the audit that the DMOA is still worthy to be kept.
It reminds me of one of the Hellraiser anthology short stories that Linkara covered in one of his reviews, where a teacher tells kids to not believe in, phrases that are meant to ward you off of bad situations, like step on a crack, your mother's back breaks and stuff like that. And it turns out that they are real warding in order to avoid having the Cenobites actually skin you alive or some shit like that.
Go figure. It's just so abrupt an ending, which, hey, if that was the way to pay homage to the original, congratulations. I do agree with Dweebs. It's bizarre. I wouldn't call it bad, though, but it is bizarre. That said, if I were to consider this like an extra chapter to the movie, like literally tack this on to the end of Gorgo, yeah, I could actually see this working out since, hey, the ending of Gorgo was abrupt, so if you consider this an epilogue to Gorgo,
like that
it
40 years later,
Yeah. Yeah, like, I think it works out well enough as an epilogue here, and hey, look, it's more from Gorgo than I was expecting, so I'll give it its dues. It's fine, it's bizarre, but it's one for the fans, and I think it does its job well enough there.
As for me, no, I think it's pretty much on the same wavelength of Jova. So this is not the miraculous, return of Gorgo in a spectacular fashion, especially, with the budget that this had, clearly not that much. But I can tell that this is a project that comes from people who love the original movie, and wanted to be, do something about it with tongue firmly planted in cheek. I also like the acting, and it's a shame that the actress, the young lady who played the Ministry of Defense inquiries, did not had that much over her career. Could have seen her do something else. The Again, the premise is a bit bizarre, especially coming off, from Gorgo. But we have to remember about 40 years passing, and this is one of those things where your imagination fills in the gaps. Makes you ponder what happened in those 40 years. These days, a company would have absolutely, panicked and realized a project event, filled in the gaps themselves, told exactly what happened. But in here, you're given just enough vague information that you do ponder how exactly things depend out, and it does make you wonder what happened to the characters from the original movie. Unfortunately, this continues the whole thing about Dorkin not being punished for his crimes. Hell, unless you're telling me that doing the cover-up, they basically had to make him close his operations as a result. I wonder.
Although, like you said, that's something you have to infer and hope for as opposed to anything confirmed. Although, God, imagine if it turned out that the woman was actually the descendant of Durkin or something and wanted to redeem her family name after her great-great-great-grandfather did what he did to Gorgo.
I wonder. But that's pretty much it, honestly. Again, I can live without it, but I don't think it's, that bad as a tacked on the extra epilogue to the original movie. So there is that. So, that is it actually for Gorgo. We're done. I don't think the Charlton comic line from, the original Charlton comic line has particular relevance now, anyway.
Nor the IDW ones.
Well, that's the more recent. Yeah. So instead,
Although, could you imagine if, for the next few years after we release this, it turns out Toho bought Gorgo.
I mean, hey, wouldn't that be something? Godzilla versus Gorgo versus Gino, aka Zilla.
Stranger things also have happened with, so who knows? Anyway. Instead, when we return to the Kaiju Bonanza, we will see when that happens, but it's time for Godzilla to actually meet his proper arch rival, which, while down the line it will become more of a laughing stock, in its first appearance, he will be actually very deadly, where it's a kaiju that makes sure that the tone of the movie, while still remaining comedic, shift to having a big escalation, because it's not anymore just the forces of nature rising up and humans having to defend, but we're having space forces finally starting to invade Earth, and Godzilla will have to step up from being just a menace to defend the planet that he regularly destroys, against a menace that is not just instinctual but also intelligent, malicious, and deadly. So tune in next time for Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
At long last.
See ya.
See ya.
See you then.